So the Treasurer has been doing something of a tour in Queensland. He's been to Cairns, he's been to Townsville, he's been to the Promised Land, as I say. A lot of talk about these aviation grants, interest-free loans. Details are coming in the next few days, so you probably can't speak specifically about that. But generally, how much of a help would that have?
Look, I'd like to see additional help for the tourism sector. I think you're a proud Queenslander too, Peter, and lots of tourist hotspots up here have been hit very hard. I mean, it's a mixed story, though, in our tourism industry. Those areas that are focused more on domestic tourism are doing very well, but areas of the country like Cairns and the Whitsunday, which have always relied on a fair chunk of international visitors, have obviously been hit very hard. I think it's great that Treasurer's been up here listening to people. I'm sure that will help him in the discussions in Cabinet to get assistance that is needed. The government's always been, I think, willing to provide assistance to businesses through these difficult times. In saying that, I would like to see the end of JobKeeper. I don't think we can continue to subsidise people's wages forever. It costs too much money and we've racked up too much debt.
Yeah, but you're happy with the targeted support that comes after that?
I would like to see targeted support for those industries because, I mean, going back to why we introduced this support, the reasons for it were that the lockdowns were as a result of government decisions, notwithstanding the pandemic came from outside. The government's made decisions to lock down. We've still made a decision to keep our international borders closed, both outwards and inbounds. At least you've got to quarantine for a long time. So because of that, there's a justification for government to continue to support those businesses affected by government decisions.
I've got to ask, Senator, I just put this to the Treasurer a short time ago, but these comments that were made by Julie Bishop overnight that she claims that a club known as the Big Swinging Dicks Club had tried to stall her career, which was ultimately unsuccessful because she did quite well. But what did you make of her comments overnight?
Look, I didn't see the interview, but as you say, I think the Treasurer summed up well. Julie did have the last laugh. In my experience, those people who like to describe themselves in those terms tend to be compensating for something else. So it doesn't surprise me they weren't very effective, given how they went about that. I'd never heard of that particular club, so to speak, and like the Treasurer, I'm not particularly interested in being a member.
Well, she went on to talk about essentially talking about the culture in Canberra and how there's basically this protection racket around, and it's not just one party, it's all parties, this protection racket around parties that makes sure that no one damages particular parties' prospects. Are you aware of that? Is that in place?
Oh, there's no doubt that there are those pressures in politics. I mean, in saying that, though, I don't necessarily think that's incredibly unique. The same sort of pressures exist in the business world, and we've seen different harassment cases handled differently in the business world. But there's got to be a higher standard in Canberra, right? Well, there should be, but you're just asking me a question about the pressures that are there, and you've got to be realistic and upfront that, yeah, sure, there are pressures there to maintain reputations and brands, etc. But as I say, that exists in the corporate world as well. But like in the corporate world, almost always it's the cover-up that gets you. And I think the lesson out of all of the circumstances is the best antidote is to be upfront, transparent, take the bath when these sort of things happen and get on with it. So look, there are those pressures there. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think they're unique to politics. And the answer is not a unique one. It is to have full transparency, to deal with issues that come up when they do, as they always will, and they will in the future. I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned out of what's happened in recent weeks.
Okay, so John Anderson joining you in the Senate, perhaps. Matt Canavan, will you be giving him a warm embrace back to the party?
I love John. He's a great guy. He continues to be a thought leader for this country, and I think he'd be a great addition to the Senate. Obviously, I don't have a vote as a Queenslander and not a member of the New South Wales Nationals Party. It's up to the members. But it is great to see someone of his calibre put their hand up. That can only sharpen the contest. And if he did make it through, that would be great. I do want to get his tips on how he doesn't age too. He doesn't look any different from when he retired like 16 years ago. How does he do that? I don't know.
Well, but what does it say about the future of the party if you're calling on the past for help?
Look, I mean, to start with, I think John has put his hand up here, which is his right as a member of the New South Wales Nationals Party, and it's up to the members. And the second point to make here is that, John went out very young, so I don't think he's, in any way yesterday's man. I believe John Howard was still Prime Minister at about John's age, but John, I think, did have some health issues some time ago, and he decided to step back at that time. So, as I say, he's continued to remain engaged in the political fray or the public policy space, doing great work with his podcasts and contributions to our intellectual milieu. So I welcome him back if he got there. I'm sure he'll continue to play a role, whatever happens through the pre-selection process.